have this theory that misogyny is the original sin. For this to make sense, we have to go into the details of what is written between the lines of the story, because it's a very short story, what happened in there, and there isn't much of the human element. It's just a story of this happened and that happened, this happened. But now if you've studied psychology, philosophy, human nature, and also the ways of God through the Bible, that story in there begins to show me something about what is happening today. That is the through line. So if you remember in Sunday school, when we're told that story of Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden, we always somehow left it feeling like the woman was to blame. There was always that thing.
Just talked about this the other day.
That the woman, both the boys and the girls, and we've known that story forever. So deep down with us, without even knowing why, there's always that
blaming Eve.
That blame of women, right? Now here's where it gets deep. Let's go back to the story itself.
Yeah.
God creates Adam, and we don't have a sense of time as far how long that was, but we can imagine that, let's say, between when he was made and did all the things he did alone, it was just him and God walking together, getting to know each other. And then God notices that he's lonely, that he would need someone who is more on his level, a human, right? So he creates this human. This human is the third wheel in this relationship at that time. No matter what, at that time, you don't just build a relationship like that. So as far as Eve is concerned, she's the third wheel in this relationship that involves Adam and God and her. Adam and God have been like this for some time, right? So obviously, if God says, hey, of all the fruit in here, don't touch that one, Adam is obliged. I understand, this is my guy, we go way back. So when he says some things, I understand. Eve doesn't have that same relationship with God. So she's more curious. And I think that's on purpose on God's part. Because there's too much familiarity here with God. We need something to spice things up. So he created woman in the way she's made. So he puts her in there and says, don't touch this. And that's also another, again, God being the tricky. Jesus said, be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. That's God. And just as he's good, he can be very, very tricky. So anyway, he puts these two human beings in this garden with this very, very shiny object that you can't miss, but you must not eat. And so Eve, I'm sure her and Adam have talked about it and they agree, okay, we're not eating this thing. And then God says, you know what, let's increase the stakes. And so he sent a serpent to go and, women, their ears is the key to their heart.
Sometimes.
A lot of the times. It's well documented. You talk the right things at the right time to the right woman.
Depends on the woman.
Is a route. Hey.
That's arguable, but
okay.
I'm gonna agree with you.
Okay. So the servant comes and says the right things and talks about being like God. And I can imagine that is a very tempting possibility to Eve because she doesn't have the relationship with God yet. She doesn't know.
I see where you're going.
Yeah.
I see where you're going.
She doesn't know, God
that
like
level.
that. Yeah. So she's trying to understand what exactly is going on. And so the serpent says the right things and she goes and she eats it. Now I believe she eats exactly half of it. And then
gives the other half. And
she doesn't just give it to Adam. She presents it to Adam. Look what I've done. And look what I now know. This serpent wasn't lying. There's information in this thing about myself, about us, about what this is. You need to have this. And Adam's like, but we agreed not to. So I'm sure there's back and forth. But then there comes a point where he decides, okay, since, because a woman has access to her man's heart anyway. So if she says, with her wisdom, she says, this is what's up, that God will understand, whatever. And he eats it. Now, and when you share that kind of fruit with someone, it's like a covenant, like a pact, like we're together. It's you and I now, and that's what Eve wanted the whole time. She wants two of them to be like God is not the third. God is the third wheel now. It's you and me. So God shows up and it's like, something's amiss here. Something's different. First of all, you guys are a little bit too close than I realized. I remember, and then Adam panicked because God is still this guy. So he panicked. And if you remember the key moment, which they never ever mention it when they tell the story, the key moment is that when God asked him about what happened, he threw Eve under the bus. Remember? His response to that question? I can't remember the details.
The woman gave me.
The woman gave me the thing. And the way it's worded, it just sounds like a betrayal of a trust at that time. And two things happen in that moment. Both God and woman and Eve are disappointed in Adam at that moment. Eve, for starters, because you're my man. Should have, we're in this together. Why would you do that? We just, So imagine breaking an oath. There's repercussions for that, first of all. Two, God is disappointed in Adam because I taught you better than that. Not just that, it's one thing to because you didn't eat it, but the way you threw her under the bus like that, that is not of God.
It's not of God.
That is not of God at all.
There's no accountability.
Right? So now, what's interesting is that because of this betrayal between Eve and Adam, there's that historical distrust between men and women. So Adam is like, she set me up to do this thing, and Eve is like, he threw me under the bus, he betrayed me, he broke my heart in that moment.
You think that's how she felt?
I think that's how she felt. Because, and then God in his infinite wisdom is like, he understands what's happened now because there's a rift, it's betrayal. And the Garden of Eden is perfect. It's a perfect place of peace and paradise. This can't exist in here. So you have to go out. You have to go out and figure your shit out and then find your way back. But there are punishments because it's a hard world out there, right? You guys, this energy is what that world's about. Conflict, tension, and figuring things out. And the only way you can figure things out is if you go through this process of, of restoration, transformation, finding your way back to the garden. You can't do this here. And so Adam and Eve go into the leave in shame and disgrace, but also they're not really on the same page. And so you can imagine if they're the first man and woman, you can imagine what the stories passed down have been between men and women, which is, and you always hear this, women will get you in trouble. Men will disappoint you. It's evidenced in that story, even though it's not told in such straight terms. And so, misogyny and the gender wars in general are birthed from that, because the story's been told. Adam and Eve, Sunday school, you're told it and you feel it. I felt it. I can remember like, oh, this girl, she's just trouble, that kind of thing. And so that is how it now develops into other social issues, subconsciously, because the seed has been sown. So if you want, my theory is if you want to solve the problem of misogyny and other things that have to do with genders, disparity, is how do we tell that story in a way that makes both parties understand exactly what is at stake? Because the point is, and in each of us, there's that disconnect between the masculine and the feminine anyway. It's always there, both in us and outside. So part of the underlying journey of life is making peace with yourself, both sides, as well as making peace with the woman you're with, one-on-one, not even like on a general level, like you start one-on-one, the one in front of you. Can you grow to respect her, to see her, to accept her without any ill feelings? And what grace will you develop in doing that? Same with a woman, to look at a man without feeling like men are scum. That men are scum, when women said it, we know where it came, like, we didn't know how deep it goes, but now when I thought about it, like, it's good, like, Eve was probably saying that, this Adam is scum. This guy just broke my heart. And you know how women are broken, they don't play.
We don't play about our hearts.
Yeah. So for generations, we have people raised with this understanding that something happened in that garden, that we now have to deal with all of this life shit.